Never be afraid to spread your wings and fly.
Yes, indeed.
Hey, it's me, Sunset the Bird, and welcome to another Dark Souls 3 challenge run. This one's a bit more personal since I was looking around and I thought of, let's do the bird-themed weapons. And I can use this as a reason to talk about my persona, both the origins, and other stuff, such as being more comfortable with yourself. I already did this run completely, and that was originally meant to be the video, but I thought I could do it better, so I decided to redo the entire playthrough. So this is the second time I've done this playthrough just to make sure I do it better. So I already have the character already. So I already have the character design from the last playthrough. The challenge and rule of this run is to use winged weapons, and the four I'm allowing myself are the Corvian Great Knife and Great Scythe, the Crow Quills, and the Crow Talons. These are because they are related to Corvians, which are very much bird-like. And I know you could also include, if you want to do winged weapons entirely, you could also bring in gargoyles. You can bring in the winged knights, which they got in the first playthrough with the winged knight twin axes. But doing how you have to suddenly branch off the bit to get strength, I decided not to include it this one. The other rule of this playthrough is every time I beat a boss with one of these winged weapons, I have to swap to the next one to the right of it. The inventory decides the order, so every time I beat a boss, I swap to the next one. If I get an inconvenient weapon, oh well, I have to work with it. Sometimes it's a bit different at the beginning because I have to get my hands on the Corvian weapons first by RNG, and then later get my hands on the Crow weapons via the DLC. So, with all that being explained, let's get started. While I quite enjoy the High Wall Lothric, I tend to rush through it, but this time I'm going to try to add a few more things, just add a bit more meat to the video, such as this Hollow doing whatever he's doing, and I also went after the Mimic, which is what I usually do, but my friend had convinced me to turn around to see if he would drop the Avarice as a joke. He wanted me to check, because they usually pick up the loot, and I went sure, and it turns out, there it is. I got a Symbol of Avarice, which is actually useful because it is really good for souls later on in the playthrough. So, let's be grateful I got that this early on. Afterwards, there was just normal high wall stuff I like to do. Fighting the Pus of Men, just like we get some early Titanite, because I'm going to need a lot of it, saying that I have to max out 4 weapons. 5, because there's a special one later on I'll mention. Yeah, find the Pus of Men for the Titanite shards, collecting the Titanite shards laying around on the map. And after that, it was time to head down to go deal with our good friend Vord. It's Vord. Nothing really happens, but I always have fun fighting him, and I never got to use paired weapons against him, really. Only ever, like, one-handed weapons. So yeah, it was quite enjoyable. The Soulsword Twin Blades are very strong, that's why I tended not to upgrade them that much, because they were only used because it came with the Dex class, which is the main focus of this playthrough, along with Bleed. And some faith, which will be more important later on. But Vort goes down, and we can move further into Dark Souls 3.
I allow you they have to their head for. This it is if you then and
With the level up and collection of a few additional items now out of the way, it is time to head into the Undead Settlement. One of my personal favorite areas. I really do like this place. Nothing really happens here besides getting bit by some dogs, and ransacking the place for Estus shards, Undead Bone shards, and Titanite shards. Probably gonna say that a lot. And grabbing this here Crystal Lizard, or well, more like slicing him for a sharp gem, and dealing with the manservant who got in my way. And after collecting the bonfires and all that, I decided time to go after Tree Balls, as I hear he's called, or Curse Rod of Greatwood. if you want to call him that. Nothing really happens here. It's Kurthra. He gets embarrassed pretty easily. Just smack him on his pustules and he goes down fairly well. I do like him as a boss, don't get me wrong. I love his design. He's probably one of my favorites is how unique he is. And that he's kind of vague, but it's not too vague. But he goes down quickly, so moving on. Coming back to the Undead Settlement, I run through the gauntlet of pot throwing so I can open up the doors to the lower areas, that is the Road of Sacrifice, via this elevator and running past this very aggressive resident of Irithil, the Boreal Valley. I don't know why so many of these doors are so hard to open, but who am I to question it? To be fair, I am not a giant dude. I don't have a lot of strength. But here we are at the Road of Sacrifices, where it's a lot of killing Corvians along the way because these guys carry 2 of the 4 weapons I need for this playthrough. So I'm trying to kill as many as I can before getting to the halfway fortress where I will do my normal grind for this item. Don't worry, I'll skip out of it so you don't have to see a bunch of fast-forwarded footage or anything. Oh, fuck! Help me, please! Now with our Corvian Great Knife and Scythe acquired, we can move on into the Road of Sacrifices and grab ourselves some Titanite from there, along with running towards the Twin Exiles and doing the traditional grab onto the ladder and watch them plummet to their death. And thankfully it worked this time, because normally I grab onto this ladder and they either knock me off because they stepped on my head, or they just climb onto it and I have to run all the way to the bottom. And sometimes Hazel joins in, but Hazel usually also falls through the ladder strats, so it's not that big a deal. But now, let's move on to Fair and Keep, where it's just another case of ransacking it for shards, Estus, Bone, and Titanite. I'm not really lying, it really is mostly grabbing Titanite, but also going out of my way to get my hands on the Sage's Coal, so I can do Sharp Infusions. And also just extinguishing the flames, you know, it's just how it is, it's Fair and Keep. Just get smacked by Mr. Brown, you know, the Grooves. And doing my usual, instead of grabbing the last fire to extinguish, I head straight up to the old Wolf of Farron, because that's just my strategy, because there's the Dream Chaser's Ashes, so you can grab infinite Titanite shards. So, yeah, that's pretty nice. In my pursuit of a refined gem to use on the Great Knife due to how the scalings look, I headed back to the High Wall of Lothric to deal with a blue-caped, red-eyed Lothric Knight, who was not very happy to see me whatsoever. But it's a giant knife. It's not hard. It's a dagger. These guys aren't great at pushing through unless they decide to proc their hyper armor, which is sometimes instant, sometimes not. But he goes down, and I get me a nice old refined gem for my knife. Now with some upgrades and an infusement on my Corvian Great Knife, it was time to face our first boss with these newfound weapons, the Crystal Sage, who is also a little bit bird-themed with their neat little Plague Doctor-esque mask that they wear. I'm pretty sure this one's a guy though. From what I'm told, the one in the Road of Sacrifices is a guy. He paired with the Abyss Watchers in the Undead Legion of Farron, while the second one is a lady. She what is called the Heretical Scholars of the Grand Archive. Crystal Sage doesn't take that much effort. I think they do get a few hits in on me, I ain't gonna lie, they do get a few smacks, but I just don't think Crystal Sage liked it when an actual bird came in to beat their ass, despite the fact they wear a bird mask. Maybe they're jealous? I have no clue, but anyway, Crystal Sage goes down, so that's very nice. And we get to head further into the game. I can definitely say I could have acquired this outfit more morally correctly, rather than what I chose to do, which is find Cornix in his bird cage and kill him while he was in the cage. I felt bad because the line he says is, little bird, what is there to be gained? Which made me feel bad because it felt like a direct call out. Because it feels like the whole theme of the video is bird-like and, me, Sunset the bird. I'm overcomplicating things. But I probably could have done it via Cuculus or Cuculus and have them help me with the old Demon King. So, but we now got our bird drip, so we can move on. Now that we've had to swap over to the Scythe due to the rules of the challenge, let's test this out on our good friend Manservant. A neat thing about the Scythe is while the bleed is pretty good, it can get pretty high if you do a bleed build, and the reach and the damage is pretty good. The other downside is every hit you do to someone, you also build bleed up on yourself as a consequence. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but the problem is that I have to use this against the Deacon, so you can probably guess what happens when a weapon that builds bleed on yourself based on per hit of an enemy, and then you have to hit a crowd, how bad that's going to turn out. The Scythe also has the benefit of launching dogs when you hit them, which is so satisfying because these dogs that teleport, because that's how Dark Souls 3 is, when it does it, it gets quite annoying. So thankfully I can get some satisfaction out of being able to throw them as payback. But with that out of the way, we are now in the Cathedral of the Deep, which is my favorite area of this game. So let's head straight to the Cleansing Chapel and delve into this area.
Thank you. Day of Ash.
Oh, you thought that we was gonna actually go for the Cathedral. Nope! We are heading into the great land of Arienda, the Painted World, with amazing attractions such as the Beds of Rotting Mass, and super fun slides you can go down to and meet the citizens. And my personal favorite part, the Field of Wailing Birds. They're really passionate about the part of their job. But don't worry, we're not here to fight Ariendel or anything like that early. We're actually here for the other two weapons of the challenge run. The Crow Talons, and, probably my favorite of these, the Crow Quills. Actually, my favorite. Not maybe. So let's get these upgraded and backtrack all the way to Fahrenkeep. I know it's chaotic the way I run, but I want more souls so I can level up and pay for weapon upgrades by going after the Stray Demons. What you see here is the order that the weapons will be in, from left to right. Every time I kill a boss, I move to the weapon on the right, and I start over back on the left once I hit the end on the right. And now, after getting some upgrades on these weapons so we can actually face future challenges in this playthrough, it is time to explore the Cathedral of the Deep properly. And this place is just wonderful. Look how friendly all the people are. They're just enjoying the sights and views just like anyone else who comes here. Not to mention great security measures, like, they're really advanced. And the people are really passionate about explaining their god to us, so we may find salvation. Though I did have to kind of force my way into the cathedral in order to seek guidance from the deacons themselves, but other than that, no. Getting in was fairly good. Going down this elevator real quick to get myself a shortcut, and right afterward I decided to run back up and grab myself the Lloyd sword ring for extra damage when my HP is full. Afterwards, I decided to fight Longfinger Kirk, who I think is just Kirk in the older games, he's actually a Dark Wraith, but instead of being with Quelana, he's actually for Rosaria this time around. He seems to have a thing for monster women, though I don't know if Rosaria per se counts as a monster. I don't know. But moving on, I decided to go handle the deacons. I tend to get through the cathedral fairly fast since I rarely respec, so I don't really need Rosaria. Deacons in the first test playthrough was just as annoying, and here you can see the severe amount of bleed buildup on myself. Because of hitting every hit on an enemy counts as a part of bleed buildup, so you know, big crowd equals a lot of hits. The problem I had with this is that every time I'd get close to killing the deacon, like half the time the soul would leave and I'd have to run around looking for him. But soon enough I After forcing them to come to the back of the boss room, I'm able to go and fight Royce when he's all by himself with only 6 fat deacons protecting him. They did keep pushing me away, which that's just how the deacons of the deep boss fight is. But with a little bit of pressure and some elbow grease, I'm able to get in and beat the Pope, or well, Archdeacon into the ground and defeat the deacons of the deep. Really annoying sometimes. Up next for our weapons is the Crow Quills, my favorite of the 4 weapons here, and possibly one of my favorites. In general, we can move back into Fair & Keep and get the last fire extinguished so we can actually deal with the Abyss Watchers. But Hazel decided to spawn in and caused me a lot of problems for like 3 to 5 minutes. But in a matter of time, Hazel falls and we can move on. Into, I think, Wolf's Blood, I am able to run past the Dark Wraiths and get myself the Fair & Keep Perimeter Bonfire, and convince the Dark Wraiths to fight with the Grooves, so I can summon an NPC to help me with the Abyss Watchers. It's not like the Abyss Watchers are that hard, it's just, I'm allowed, since the sake of this run is to, well, say how you should be willing to not be ashamed of who you are, and also just have fun being yourself. And for me, that's when the summon got hard, because he's a really fun NPC to play with. I just made fun of his name more, so I became attached to the funny name. So yeah, I'm allowing NPC summons because I feel like it'd be more interesting than just brute forcing and killing all the bosses easily. So with the Abyss Watchers not having much to them, mostly just a gang fight in the corner and jumping in phase 2, I wanted to talk about what I mentioned a second ago, which is being confident in who you are as a person. The world of Dark Souls has so many faces that are all so random, sometimes monstrous, and yet they still seem to take pride or at least some kind of confidence in themselves in what they do. Just like how people IRL and how I believe people should not be ashamed of who they are. Gay, bisexual, trans, non-binary, you should still be happy and confident in who you are and not be ashamed when others may judge you for being what makes you happy. Like, I myself am a furry who is bisexual, and I believe this same thing where you should not be ashamed of it. So, I wanted to at least mention it, even if it sounds a bit cheesy or weird. Just don't let the world crush you down and stand proud and confident in who you are as a person. I do have to say this just to let y'all know, and I hate that this keeps happening, but for some reason sometimes in my videos part of the footage gets corrupted, and it happened again in this, and while it was only like 20 some minutes, I'm pretty sure we miss out on the old Demon King boss fight, which I am very, very sorry about, because that was when I had to use the Crow Talons, and now we missed out on that entirely, so do forgive me for that. So now we have to move on to the Corvian Great Knife, and move over to fight Wolnir and such, and do other stuff like that, so I hope you can forgive me. I am going to do series of quest lines since it's more of an important conversation later in the video, but I decided to head down to the Smoldering Lake to grab the important stuff like Estus and Bone Shards down there, and I'll say hi to the good friend Demon Cleric. I also spent like a lot of time trying to kill this Black Knight here, despite the fact I could have just ran past, but no, I wanted to be fancy, and it costed me like, I think, about 5 deaths. But he fucked me up a lot, and half of them were me just accidentally rolling off the fucking ledge. Because my stubborn ass thought it'd be much better to fight him on the bridge rather than on a safer platform. And I did all of this, just so I could feel like I did something cool, which honestly I kind of did. But I did all that just so I could run up to this ladder, climb it, and after climbing it, so I could just simply go and turn off the ballista on top so it wouldn't shoot me all the time. Normally I can easily avoid it or let it kill the worm myself, but I decided no, I'm gonna go fight the worm. For like 4 minutes! I spent 4 minutes just for fun trying to fight this darn worm. Honestly, it was worth it. It was more fun than just doing the same old, same old. So, yeah. We're back with the Corvian Great Knife. The cycle has restarted, so let's continue. Now, after upgrading the weapons a bit, it was time to go deal with High Lord Wolnir, where nothing really interesting happens. It just takes a few extra hits to break his bracelets with the knife. So he goes down fairly quickly. There's not much to be said, just slap him on the wrist for being annoying, probably for overthrowing other lords and stuff. Yeah, there's not much to be said about this fight. It was just a cakewalk. I'm sorry. Like, that's all I can really say about it. After spending some time looking at this little door thing, decoration above the door, it's time to head to Irithyll of the Boreal Valley, where I noticed a little bit of a detail, where when you're first at Vort's, the cliff, like the edge after being Vort, you notice that everything looks far away, but when you get to Irithyll, the undead settlement seems much, much closer to Irithyll than it originally did. Which to me implies further the lore of how, since the fire is fading and time is breaking, that everything's being shifted closer to itself because everything's jumbling up and falling apart. Just thought I'd mention it because I think it's a very, very cool detail that I noticed just when I was doing this playthrough. It was time to deal with the Sullivan beast upon the bridge, which I actually enjoyed fighting with this, because the only time it ever really hit me was with its grab attacks. If the grab didn't hit me, it's just when the dog runs by and you're too close to it on the side, it counts as a hit. And for some reason the dog was just not on its A game at some point. But it's actually my best performance against these beasts yet, because I'm usually not good with them. So it felt good taking care of them pretty well. I cannot lie to you when I say this, I skipped the entirety of the gauntlet to get to the Church of Yorshka bonfire. There's nothing really happened, it's the same old same old. I did take some time to admire the scenery while running through Irithyll a bit, looking up at Anorlando before we could get there, and also grabbing the blood gem I'm going to need for my Corvian Great Scythe later. Going down to get me the Distant Manor bonfire, and spending an outrageous amount of time dealing with Alva Seeker the Spurned. Thankfully I was able to finish them off with throwing a blade, or illusory blade as the description of the weapon calls it. And come down into Irithyll Dungeon, where I mainly just skipped it and just went straight to get the key for the shortcut. Also finding out that the L1 combo can launch jailers and possibly other humanoid enemies, so that's pretty cool. Not much to say there. Also spent some time fighting the Mimic that has the Estus shard, just so I can get my hands on it. Still, I have as many heals as possible for the harder fights later in the playthrough. Which I will mention that this is going to be a two-part series. This is just going to be a two-part thing, because I want to include more meat into it, which means I'm going to have to divide it into 2 videos. Now we're here at the Profane Capital after running through Rat and Jailer Central, where we can see our good friend Gilligan before getting our hands on the first bonfire of this area. Have to go back to Irithyll since I need to pull off the insane gauntlet just to open up a shortcut into Sullivan's boss arena. Nothing really happens, I just run through past all the dogs who keep trying to bite me. They almost got me, but I'm able to get past them all and climb onto the ladder where they all begin to chase underneath. But due to the fact they can't do anything, I decided to just drop on their heads and crush them. Watch out, boys. Afterwards, I opened up the shortcut, and like I mentioned, I like to do summons for this since it's more fun. I know I can solo the bosses, but I prefer to do summons for fun for these playthroughs sometimes. So I summoned Galhard again for Sullivan, and we jumped this here, Pontus Knight with a scythe. The only downside is, this first attempt was a fluke, and we got fucked up really fucking fast. So, despite this first fight being a failure, we can come back here in just a second, after going to get a level up and our hands on the Profaned Coal from Irithyll Dungeon to put bleed on the Corvian Great Scythe. And now, with all that out of the way, we can fight Pontiff Sullivan proper, though we had to wait for, not proper actually, because Galhard decided to keep fighting people at the fog wall, and I decided to join in a bit, but like about 30 seconds later, it was time to deal with what would have been the original main antagonist of this game. The man born within the painted world of Arienzo. The man who studied sorceries, discoverer of the profaned flame, pursuer of strength, toppler of religion, ally of Aldrich, devourer of gods. It was very good though. Despite the fact, sadly, that Blackhand Gotthard fell at the start of the second phase, I was able to pull off a narrow victory where one hit would have killed me. I decided that I was allowed to parry by taking off all my weapons. Because parrying's not it's a tool and it doesn't do any direct damage, so I decided it was allowed. So Sullivan goes down with actually a fair amount of struggle. So now we can go on to deal with the next boss. Anne Orlando, home to Aldrich, devourer of gods. Kind of funny that the one who eats the gods is residing within the city of the gods. Nothing really happens with Aldrich. I do struggle a bit because this weapon does take some time, but due to Aldrich's seemingly weakness to bleed, Aldrich goes down fairly well. They did put up a good struggle at the end though, where they kept trying to steal my health and teleport away right before I could get any significant bleed procs or anything of the sort. But despite how much I like Aldrich, Aldrich can either be annoying or really easy, so it's not that big a deal. Just slap him a few times, make sure to close the distance after they teleport so he doesn't hit you with a annoying ass barrage of arrows during the second phase, and you should be all set to go. Nothing too big there. Also, we'll be doing this back to back, so now that Aldrich is dead, thank goodness the Nether Lord's out of the way, the last boss of this here that we'll be handling will be Yorn the Giant, Lord of the Profane Capital. We're doing these back to back since all I did in between was just upgrade the weapons, not even get a level up. And we have to fight him with Crow Talons, which it's going to be hard because fighting him without a gimmick, unless it's a heavy hitting weapon, doesn't really do much. I think I spent about 13 minutes fighting him with these claws. I fought him with Cestus, and I'm pretty sure I had to fight him with the Crow Talons in the first playthrough anyhow. He's just really, really tanky. Big health pool, high damage negation. Yorm is just all around annoying to deal with. That's all I can really say about him. He can be a huge problem if you don't know the attack is right-handed. He'll stun quickly in order to get crits on his head. But in the end, Yorm falls like any other. It's just a battle of patience rather than a battle of skill. That's all it really is. You just gotta make sure you keep your head collected and don't let yourself slip up despite how long the fight is. And you'll get your victory sooner or later. I think the longest I've ever spent fighting him was like 16 minutes, I'd say. But I get to finish him off with a crit, so that was very nice. And Yorn falls to the Birdman. He did not stand a chance. That's going to be it for the first of 2 videos on winged weapons. I have more topics related to the furry fandom, my origins, my furry, to discuss, but that'll be in the next video. I know this clip is unrelated, but I couldn't snip anymore, so I added this because I've been playing Deltarune like last night. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and thank you for watching to the end. If you'd like to consider subscribing, liking, and tell me your thoughts about this video in the comments down below. And I will be seeing you until the next video. I shall be seeing you. So long.